"We're cutting you off for good," Mom declared firmly at dinner. My phone buzzed. "Ms. Kara, your company's valuation just crossed $100 million. Knives and forks froze midair. No one spoke. The same family that disowned me had just realized I outranked them all. "You're done here," my mother said, her voice sharp and final, just as the lemon tart was placed in front of me. I didn't touch the dessert. I didn't touch anything after that. The dining room was silent, except for the clink of silverware and the occasional forced cough. My brother leaned back in his chair, clearly enjoying the spectacle. My sister kept her eyes on her wine glass. My father, as always, said nothing. I sat at the far end of the table, the seat they always gave me, close to the window, far from the warmth. The invitation had come 2 days earlier. A text from my brother. "Dinner Sunday. Family only." No emojis. No explanation. I hadn't been home in months, and even then, it was only for a brief visit after my grandmother passed. I debated ignoring it. But something in me said go. Maybe I wanted to see if anything had changed. Maybe I wanted to prove I had. I arrived early, dressed in a simple black dress. Not flashy. Just enough to say I belonged. My mother opened the door, gave me a glance, and walked away. My father nodded, distracted. My siblings exchanged glances like I was a guest they hadn't expected. Dinner was served in the formal dining room. The table was long, the seats assigned. I was placed at the end next to the window. My brother sat across from me, my sister beside him. My mother at the head, my father beside her. The meal began with polite conversation. Weather, politics, vacation plans. But the undertone was sharp. "So, still doing that little tech thing?" my sister asked, swirling her wine. "It's not little," I replied. My brother chuckled. Real jobs have structure. Benefits. Stability." I didn't respond. I'd learned long ago that defending myself only fed their fire. My mother cleared her throat. "Family loyalty matters. Especially when you've been given so much." I looked at her. Given. She didn't answer. The roast chicken was dry. The vegetables were bland. The salad was untouched. I focused on my plate, counting the minutes until I could leave. Then dessert arrived. Lemon tart, my childhood favorite. I didn't touch it. My mother put down her fork. The room quieted. "We're cutting you off for good," she said. No emotion. No hesitation. My siblings didn't flinch. My father stayed silent. I felt the sting, but I didn't react. I'd heard worse. I just didn't expect it to be so public. I reached for my water glass. My hand was steady. Then my phone buzzed. I glanced down. A message from my CFO. "Ms. Kara, your company's valuation just crossed $100 million. I read it twice. Then I looked up. Knives and forks froze. My brother's mouth hung open. My mother blinked. The silence was louder than her declaration. I placed my phone face down on the table. "Congratulations," I said softly, "on your timing." No one spoke. I stood, placed my napkin on the table, and said, "Thank you for dinner." My heels clicked against the tile as I walked out. No one followed. Outside, the air felt different. Lighter. The sky was fading into dusk, the wind gentle against my skin. I didn't cry. I didn't smile. I just knew everything had changed. And they couldn't undo it. I walked to my car, parked at the edge of the driveway. The house behind me glowed with warm light, but it felt cold. I sat in the driver's seat, hands on the wheel, and exhaled. I thought about the girl who used to sit at that table, desperate for approval. The one who brought home straight A's, who stayed quiet during arguments, who tried to earn love like it was a prize. She was gone. In her place was a woman who built something from nothing. Who pitched her idea to 20 investors and got 19 rejections. Who worked out of a shared apartment, coding until sunrise. Who hired her first employee with borrowed money and a promise. They hadn't seen that journey. They hadn't asked. They'd assumed I'd failed. And now they were staring at a reality they couldn't comprehend. I drove away slowly, the road familiar but distant. My phone buzzed again. Congratulatory messages, press inquiries, investor updates. I ignored them. I needed silence. I stopped at a small cafe on the way home. Ordered tea. Sat by the window. The waitress smiled. "Big night." I nodded. "You could say that." She brought the tea, left me alone. I stared out at the street, watching people pass. Couples holding hands. kids on bikes, a man walking his dog. I thought about legacy, about family, about the difference between blood and belonging. They cut me off. But I'd already let go. I sipped my tea, the warmth grounding me. I didn't need their approval. I didn't need their money. I didn't need their table. I'd built my own. And it was bigger than they ever imagined. I drove home from the cafe in silence, the glow of the dashboard casting soft light across my face. The tea had settled something in me, but it hadn't erased the ache. Not the fresh sting from dinner, but the old, familiar one, the ache of being invisible. It wasn't new. It had lived in me for years. Growing up, I was the quiet one. Not because I lacked words, but because I learned early that mine didn't matter. My mother adored my brother. She called him, my golden boy, even when he failed a math test or crashed the car. My father followed her lead, nodding along, laughing at his jokes, defending his mistakes. I was tolerated. A shadow in the corner. My achievements were met with polite nods, sometimes silence. I stopped showing them my report cards after 8th grade. They never asked why. At family gatherings, I was the one setting the table, not sitting at it. My cousins would ask, "Where's Kara?" And someone would shrug. I was always nearby, always forgotten. I learned to listen, to observe, to remember. Every slight, every dismissal, every time they forgot my birthday or left me off the group text, I stored it like data. Not for revenge. For clarity. When I got into Stanford, I told my mother in the kitchen. He was slicing apples, her back to me. She didn't turn around. "Don't get ahead of yourself," she said. I waited. Nothing more. They refused to help with tuition. Said I needed to learn responsibility. I worked 3 jobs, tutoring, waitressing, and transcribing interviews for a research lab. I slept 4 hours a night, lived off instant noodles, and still graduated early. I didn't invite them to the ceremony. They didn't notice. That was the first time I realized I didn't need their approval. I needed my own path. After college, I moved into a shared apartment with 2 strangers and a dream. I had an idea. A platform that could streamline freelance work for women in tech. I pitched it to 20 investors. 19 said no. 1 said maybe. That maybe was enough. I built my company from borrowed laptops and second-hand furniture. My desk was a folding table. My chair had a crack in the leg. I coded through the night, took meetings in coffee shops, and learned how to negotiate by watching YouTube videos. My family never asked what I was doing. They assumed I'd failed. I let them think that. It gave me space. 2 years in, I landed a major client, an international firm looking to outsource tech talent. It was a breakthrough. I celebrated with takeout and a bottle of cheap wine. The next day my brother called. "Hey," he said casually. "I heard you're working with TechCore." I paused. "Yeah. Why?" "No reason. Just curious." A week later I found out he'd contacted them. Tried to pitch his own services. Tried to undercut me. He didn't know I owned the company. I confronted him at a family brunch. He laughed. "You're not a threat," he said. "It's just business." I didn't argue. I just worked harder. That betrayal became my fuel. Every deal after that felt like justice. Every new hire, every expansion, every partnership. It was a quiet victory. Not against him. For me. I didn't post about my success. I didn't flaunt it. I reinvested, expanded, hired smart. I built a team that believed in the mission. We worked from a modest office, celebrated small wins, and kept our heads down. By the time I hit $50 million, I was already planning the next leap. They were still sending group texts without me. Still hosting dinners I wasn't invited to. That was fine. One evening I ran into my sister at a networking event. She didn't recognize me at first. I was speaking on a panel about women in leadership. Afterward she approached me, eyes wide. "Kara." I nodded. "You look different." "I am." She hesitated. "Mom said you were still figuring things out." I smiled. "I figured it out." She didn't know what to say. I walked away. That night I sat in my apartment staring at the city lights. I thought about the years they pretended I didn't exist. The birthdays missed. The holidays skipped. The silence. It hadn't broken me. It had built me. I didn't need their table. I'd built my own. And it was stronger than anything they'd ever offered. The sunlight spilled across my desk, warm and steady, like it had been waiting for me to notice it. I leaned back in my chair, letting the quiet settle. No meetings. No emails. Just stillness. The kind that doesn't ask for anything. The kind that feels earned. I glanced at the drawer where the letter sat. The one I'd written to my younger self. I hadn't opened it since I placed it there. I didn't need to. It wasn't written for rereading. It was written for remembering. For honoring the girl who kept going when no one clapped. Who built her own applause. The phone rang once. I let it go to voicemail. I stood, walked to the window and looked out over the city. The skyline shimmered, busy and brilliant. Somewhere out there people were reading my name in headlines. Kara Whitmore, the quiet force behind tech's newest giant. I hadn't asked for the spotlight. But I hadn't run from it either. A knock at the door pulled me from my thoughts. "Come in," I said. My assistant peeked in. "There's someone here to see you. Says he's from Whitmore and Company." I froze. Did he give a name? No. Just said he's family. I nodded. "Send him in." A moment later my cousin stepped into the room. The one who used to tease me for reading books at family barbecues. The one who once told me, "You'll marry rich. That's your best shot." He looked uncomfortable. His suit was expensive but his posture was unsure. "Kara," he said, forcing a smile. "Jason." He sat across from me, cleared his throat. I saw the Forbes piece. Impressive. "Thanks. I wanted to talk. About legacy." I raised an eyebrow. "Whose?" He hesitated. "The family's. Ours. There's talk about merging some assets. Your name came up." I leaned forward. "You want me to attach my name to theirs?" He nodded. "It would mean a lot. To everyone." I smiled, slow and deliberate. "You mean now that it means something?" He looked down. "It's not like that. It's exactly like that." He shifted in his seat. "Look, I know things weren't perfect growing up. But we're adults now. We can move past it." I stood, walked to the shelf and pulled down a photo. Me, age 10, standing alone at a school science fair. No family in sight. "I moved past it," I said. "Alone." Jason looked at the photo, then back at me. "You don't have to do this." "I'm not doing anything." "You are. You're asking me to validate a legacy that never included me." He stood. "So that's it." "That's it." He paused at the door. "You've changed." "No," I said. "I've arrived." After he left, I sat back down, heart steady. I wasn't angry. I was clear. Later that week, I received an invitation to a family foundation event. My name was printed on the envelope in gold. I didn't RSVP. Instead, I spent the evening at a mentorship dinner with young women launching their first startups. One of them asked, "How did you know you'd make it?" I smiled. I didn't. I just knew I couldn't wait for someone else to believe it first. The room nodded. They understood. The next morning, I walked into the office early. My team was already buzzing. Calls, meetings, ideas flying. I passed by the break room and heard laughter. Real warm shared. I paused, listening. This was my legacy. Not the name they tried to erase me from. Not the table they never saved me a seat at. But the one I built. The one that had room for others. I returned to my desk, opened the drawer and pulled out the letter. I read it slowly. "I know you feel invisible. But you're not. You're becoming. One day they'll look for you. And you won't need to be found." I folded it, placed it back and closed the drawer. Outside, the city kept moving. Inside, I finally stood still. And that was more than enough.